All right, welcome to the July 7th edition of Wine Day. My name is Zach. My pronouns are he and him. I'm the beer and wine coordinator at the Durham Co-op Market. Tonight we've got Shelby from Etruscan Imports. When I was doing some research this morning about Chianti and where it comes from, the Etruscans actually kind of inhabited that for a while. So I think it's pretty cool that we're showing off the Chianti tonight. We also have a Pinot Grigio. We're going to just jump right in. Shelby, if you'd like to take it away, feel free.
Sure thing. So yeah, I have the Nomalas Pinot Grigio as well. So right off the bat, I will say this is not your typical Pinot Grigio. It is very light. The soil is very stony. It is from flat hills, which contribute to being so light in body. It is low in alcohol. It's only about 11.5 or so. So just a very light, easygoing. You'll notice if you've just recently opened it that it is very slightly bubbly. It has a natural cork in it, and you'll see that it expanded on the end, so it'll kind of indicate that it's a little bit bubbly on the inside. Just to give it a little bit more like structure, because it is just such a light Pinot Grigio.
Do they add the CO2 to it, or is it a natural byproduct?
No, it's not pumped with CO2. It has a second fermentation in the stainless steel just before bottling.
Okay, yeah, it's good. When I tried this a couple months ago, and Katie, who is my sales rep from Etruscan, she poured it, and I was like, "How is this Pinot Grigio?" You know, it kind of made me think a little bit. And when she told me that I could sell it for $10 or less, I was like, I want a bunch of this. So the fact that, like you said, the bubbles really give it some structure. I like how light-bodied it is. When people think of Pinot Grigio, they either think of like really kind of thick and heavy and aromatic, or they think really light-bodied, where the bubbles of this really add just that nice freshness to it. And it's kind of reminds me of a Vino Verde, but instead of that really kind of bracing acidity, it's just nice and light, little bit of like almost kind of lemon cream to it. This is the tech sheet from Nomalas. Gorgeous tech sheet. I love these like nasturtium looking flowers over here. It's really pretty. I also, it's not always, but we get both Italian and the English translation. So this is, you know, legit from Italy, and gotta love it. But light-bodied, that 11.5 alcohol, you could actually drink a couple glasses and not just be totally, you know, out on the floor like you would with some of the other Pinot Grigios that we have. And really great. I also noticed the Sylvaz training method on this, and I looked up what that was, and it's a way to train the grape canes in order to get the bunches, but it's only one direction or something kind of like that. I'm not super familiar. Do you have any insight on the Sylvaz training method, or is that?
Yeah, as soon as you said that, I was like, man, I should know more about that. So
Oh, very good.
no, honestly, I don't, and I should look it up and learn more.
Definitely an interesting method. It was created by this guy in Italy. Let's see if I have a picture here. I found a pretty good picture today where it just shows off. Let's see, let me get out of the screen share thing. Like how they trim the grapevines in order to get these canes, so that way the fruit is structured in a way that they can like kind of control how much fruit they're getting. And it's just really pretty picture. This is not from Nomalas. This is from you know, the random Google searches today, but you can kind of see how the canes just kind of like flow down, and then this is kind of where they're getting those grape bunches. And it's a way to kind of control the amount of fruit that you're getting per hectare, which is important for the quality that goes into the wine. So one of the things that we look for, you know, I'm not necessarily evaluating each of the training methods that the grapevines go through when we bring in wines at the co-op. It's more about like what's in the bottle, and I think that this is a a really great example of what Pinot Grigio can be. Did you have any other insights on it, or?
Yeah, well, I actually just got to speak with the winemaker on Monday,
Oh, that's awesome.
John Luco. So it's funny that you said it's a wine you can only have like you can have 2 glasses of, and it's no big deal. And he was like, "This is like a wine that I made that you can have it while you're cooking dinner. Next thing you know, the whole bottle is gone, and it's like no big deal. It's just so easy drinking." Um, and kind of what his specialty is sparkling wine, so hence the like little bit of sparkling twist to a Pinot Grigio. So that's a fun thing to know about him is he makes some really great Prosecco's as
Okay.
well.
I'll have to get with Katie and we'll have to try those out too. We're always looking for bubbles at the co-op. We oftentimes reserve bubbles for celebratory things, and it's a great table wine. It's fantastic with food, especially fried or spicy. And Prosecco even more so because of how it's made. We've talked about in the past with the Charmat method. So the bubbles are not quite as prevalent as they are in Cava or Champagne, much more round and kind of more of a fruity presence versus that kind of yeasty or cheesy or brioche that Champagne can get, or some Cavas or Alsatian Cremant. But this is just a really fun and light style, which is great. I'm glad to have it on the shelves.
Yeah, glad that you have it.
Is there any questions, Edlin? Are you okay on questions, or were you wondering about anything? You'll have to unmute. Yep, go ahead.
We did, we unmuted. So you mentioned Prosecco, that you're always looking for Prosecco. Can Prosecco be made not in Italy? Like Champagne has to be made in the Champagne region of France?
Let's see. So my understanding is that Prosecco is Italian, typically made with Glera grapes, and then there can have some other things blended into it. But Glera is the main component of Prosecco, and it's really almost more like stylistically. There are some DOCGs with it. It used to be called like the Prosecco grape, and then they gave it an actual name. But you can do that Charmat style of bubbly wine anywhere in the world. But like you were saying, Champagne is from Champagne, France. Prosecco is from typically Veneto, so a similar area that this is from. And I would imagine that there's some cuvées, which we've talked about, so some blends that people can do with Pinot Grigio in them versus just Glera. I've had at the co-op before a mainly Glera Prosecco that had some Chardonnay added to it, so it wasn't called Prosecco anymore because that Chardonnay. They're still kind of evolving the rules of Prosecco. I think as late as last year, they finally were able to give Rosé Prosecco its actual DOC. So if you look at the both of the bottles today, there's a little tag like this big, kind of vertically on the Nomalas and kind of wrapped around the neck of the Chianti that give you a DOC. So it did basically the denomination origin control. So it guarantees that it is Pinot Grigio from Veneto, and it was aged X amount of time, and then put under bottle on the estate, or whatever the rules are for the DOC of that particular thing. And when we get into the Chianti in a minute or two, you'll really be able to tell that kind of how small it is to be able to be called Chianti. We've got a really great map that Shelby shared with me earlier this week, and we can kind of get into that. Does that answer your question? Okay. Great.
Yeah, it's a funny thing. I have to train my friends and family when they're wanting sparkling wine to not have to go in and be like, "Where's the champagne?" Because then you'll get a $50 bottle. You just ask for sparkling wine and be open to where it's coming from.
Yeah, and you can honestly, you can get very similar flavor profiles with a lot of other wines that are not champagne. And like you just said, you aren't having to spend $50. You can get, even in the 15 to 20, you can get some really great things with lees aging and that like kind of texture that Champagne is known for. And a lot of times people don't want that profile. They want Prosecco. They want a younger, bubbly wine that they can just kind of, sip on. It's fruity, make a mimosa out of it, something like that. I would be very hard pressed to make a mimosa out of a bottle of Champagne. I would, just skip the orange juice or do like a wave on top of it, something like that. Don't ruin good Champagne with orange juice. Maybe some elderflower liqueur, maybe, but even that I think would be a stretch for the good stuff.
Definitely.
All right. So simple but very delicious new wine at the Co-op. We've had it, like I said, for about a month. The second wine tonight is a Chianti from Villa Ilangi. Is that right?
Ilangi, I believe.
Ilangi. Okay.
Yeah, IL. So yeah, they have been around the area for a while. They've got some land with olives, but only about 17 hectares or so are for grape growing. They also have a little bed and breakfast and restaurant if you happen to find yourself in the area. So you can stay there as well. So on the map, it is so there's Florence, and then below there's Chianti Classico. They are only like 9 miles from Florence, so they are not in the Classico area. They are in the Fiorentini.
Okay.
Kind of near the river, so they're just to the west of Florence.
Right here.
No, the other side.
Oh, the other west. I always.
Yeah, so that's where this winery comes from. So in terms of Chianti, similar to like Prosecco or something, it got really popular internationally, and that's why there are all these tiny little regions. There's so many different styles. So I think it's really important to pay attention to what producer you're getting your Chianti from. And this particular producer is certified organic, and they are kind of going for a more approachable style. They have 10% Merlot in there, which gives it a little bit more fruit, makes it a little easier drinking. Well, I guess a lot of people think of Chianti as being like really tannic and harsh. But overall, just always a really great food pairing wine. I think that's because of the acidity. So this one, it has that good acidity, the cherry flavors, maybe some tomato leaf to it. But I love Chianti for just good old classic Italian food and just food pairing in general.
Yeah, this definitely screams like bread and olives and cheese to me. And like you said, that savoriness, that like we finally have tomatoes. It's the first year we've ever successfully grown tomatoes, so we're really excited. So now I'm kind of like, when I smelled this wine, it kind of reminded me of just being in the little flower box earlier today and checking on our little babies that we're eventually going to eat. Cherry, Sangiovese for me always screams like bright red cherries. And the reason I liked this one when we tried it was that it did have all those kind of classic notes of Chianti, good acidity, but then it has that nice kind of softness from the Merlot that you mentioned. And it also kind of gives it a little more fleshiness, where it's not just straight acid and kind of rough, and that you need, a big heavy red tomato sauce for. This is still pretty elegant. One thing that I, again, kind of found out is that Chianti, like the name has been around since like the 13th century. So 700 years now, 800 years now. And just really cool thing that the reason that the first wine that they had Chianti labeled was actually a white wine, which whenever I think of Chianti, I definitely do not think of white wines. The idea is that it was either Trebbiano or Vernaccia, which I don't think I've even ever seen a Vernaccia, but Trebbiano you'll see a little bit. pretty high acid. I think you guys have one in your book that I'll have to, again, get with Katie and try some cool new Italian wines from you guys. And it's super, super hilly in Chianti. You don't really think of it, but it's just a whole bunch of little hills, like between 100 and 500 meters, and only 8% of the entire land that has Chianti in the name is flat, which is kind of crazy to think of when, you know, we're in the Piedmont of North Carolina and we're quite flat, where here in, you know, the center of Italy and as a whole, you got all these like rolling hills, but Sangiovese, so 80% of this bottle loves that hilly, loves the really bright sunshine. You also get this huge diurnal shift. So we've mentioned diurnal shifts before. It's the how hot it gets in the day versus how cold it gets at night. And those hills really kind of help that. And it helps to, you know, develop these aromatics, which for a wine that is, you know, under 15 bucks, organic, I think this is a really fantastic example of what Chianti can be. It's really, really pretty wine and very easy drinking. You know, you could easily start off like Shelby, you were saying, start off with a glass of the Pinot Grigio with dinner, and then easily transition into this for, you know, whatever you were cooking. Yeah, really, really great stuff.
Yeah, Pinot Grigio while you make the pizza, and then Chianti while you eat the pizza.
Definitely. That sounds like a plan, actually. Right. Ed or Lynn, do you have any questions about the Chianti?
Yes, of course. Two questions. One, what is the blend again? And the Merlot is used often as a blending wine, of course, to soften it. Is that correct? And what would the percentages be on this one?
It has 10% Merlot. What was the first question that you said?
The other grapes of the blend.
No,
So it's
that was
80%.
what.
Oh.
Go ahead.
Go ahead.
80% Sangiovese with 10% Merlot. And then the other one, Caniolo, it's often blended in Chianti. Probably butchering the Italian pronunciation.
All right.
But
And then the second question is this Chianti versus Chianti Classico, if they're different, if I read your map, and can you tell me the difference?
yeah, that's a long story in history. Basically, when Chianti became so popular, everyone from outside of the Classico region and very close by, I guess they wanted to have a Chianti DOCG, and then the people in the very historic region wanted a Classico area. So it's well known, I think, that to look for the Classico is like the rooster on the label, and that's more the traditional area of where it comes from. But I think it's important. There's bad Chianti within the Classico area, and there's great Chianti just outside of it. So again, I just think it's important to pay attention to the producer. And we really like producers who, you know, it's smaller production, family estates that we focus on. So
Yeah, I find Chianti Classico to be much more rustic, like really acidic, really tannic, much more on the earthy side. This is much, for me, on the like more elegant side, as we kind of talked about with the Bordeaux tastings way back. And it's also like traditionally the Caniolo, I'll butcher the Italian with you, that was the predominant grape for a long time in Chianti, and then Sangiovese was kind of the fill-in, and then with Phylloxera, so the little mites that eat the rootstock and kind of kill the grapevines. The Canaiolo doesn't graft as well to American rootstock, so it kind of fell out of favor. I think it's kind of neat that they're using this heritage grape and kind of keeping that tradition alive, especially because they only have 17 hectares to grow grapes. So they're still using some really valuable land that they could just be making more Sangiovese or more international varietals. They're really kind of focusing on that. And another thing they used to do, and I don't believe that this wine does it, but it's called Governo, which they will take some grapes, they let them dry for a couple months, they then squish them and add them to the fermenting vat of wine, and that kind of kickstarts fermentation again because the yeast has some sugar to eat, and you get these more like higher alcohol, more nuanced kind of flavors, but it also can lead to some of the more inexpensive Chianti that we've kind of seen in the past. Like Shelby said, paying attention to the producer is a huge thing in Chianti because people are still making, Fiasco. So that like wood basket wrapped little bottle of Chianti that kind of classic 80s movie red Italian wine, where we've definitely moved quite far away from that into wines that we're tasting tonight. And that's again the importance of tasting wines before I bring them into the co-op, and for joining these wines days so that you can kind of get an idea of what's in the bottle and hopefully get some good information from it. Another thing we're seeing in Tuscany is the rise of super Tuscans, which is basically like a new made in Italy with international varietals. So you'll see some Sangiovese, just to keep it Italian, get that like kind of bright cherry flavor, and then you get the fleshiness of Cabernet Sauvignon, Syrah, the roundness that Merlot offers, and some darker fruit flavors. They're also using some kind of barrel aging techniques, so it kind of almost feels like you're drinking California wine, but there's a little bit of that kind of rustic Italian in the background there. And you see that, and that kind of eclipsed Chianti a little bit, but there's still a reason that people are making Chianti, and especially delicious ones like what we're tasting tonight. Did that answer your question? Great. All right. Well, that was a quick wines day today. I know we kind of busted through some quick Italian wine tonight. Thank you, Shelby, for joining us. And the next Wines Day will be July 23rd. Same bat channel, same bat time, or maybe the 21st. I'll have to actually look at the calendar. We'll have that posted online pretty soon. We've got the wines will be in store in the next week or so. So if there's no more questions, we'll see you next Wines Day, and enjoy your night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Bobby.